What is going on? My name is Brady Clockingay, and welcome back to another episode of the Peace Talk, a podcast about the people. Today, I have the wonderful Amanda with me. She is a host of her own podcast, How to Be Badass-ish, and she is available on Instagram at howtobebadass.ish. She is a professional speaker, and it is an honor and blessing to have her here with us today. And I am looking forward to the conversation that we will have. Thank you for coming on today, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the idea and, conversation on the Peace Talk is pretty free flowing. We'll ask a few questions, and wherever the conversation takes us, that's where we'll go.
Ooh, that's my favorite.
Yes.
My favorite.
Let's get into it. For our first question is pretty easy. Just tell us a couple things about yourself and then why you're interested in sharing your insights today on the Peace Talk.
Okay. Well, a little bit of my history, which is actually really important to what I'm doing now, is I actually owned a graphic and web design business for approximately a decade.
Nice.
And I was at the height of what most people would call successful. At one point, I was charging $10,000 for a website. I had a massive wait list. I was quote unquote successful. The flip side of that, though, is what we've structured in our society to believe is to be successful, you have to work 80 hours a week and you pride yourself on only sleeping 4 hours a night. And well, you'll get to your family when you get to your family. And, but I'm really committed and I stayed up all night doing this, that, and the other thing. And frankly, that's awful. It's awful. I don't know if you do swearing on your show, so I have to
no.
hold my
No, you're good. You're good. I swear all the time. So
okay, all right.
Don't worry about
I
it.
say that because I'm basically European when it comes to swearing. So
yeah, no worries.
It was awful. I was miserable. I hated my business. I hated my clients, and I hated me. I hated who I was. I hated who I'd become. My son is now 7 years old, and when I was at the height of my business, he was approximately 3, 4, and I have no recollection of that year. I will look at photos that my husband took, and I just go, I don't even remember that. And that's awful. That's horrifying, right?
Right.
So approximately the beginning of 2019, I had a full-fledged nervous breakdown, and people joke about it like, oh yeah, well, I kind of did this, but then they keep doing the thing that caused them nervous breakdown.
It's crazy.
And I went,
right?
no, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. And what happened is I gave myself a huge amount of space, and I did I think it was a hard left pivot, but everybody else in my life, all my clients, all my friends, all my family are like, no, you're finally doing what you're supposed to be doing. Enter the podcast, right? So
yes,
I started the podcast because I realized one of my favorite things to do is have these really deep, hard conversations that should be had, that people need to talk about, nobody's talking about. And when they talk about it, they sugarcoat it and make it this pretty pink fluffy donut and go, okay, well, we're going to talk about, for example, one of my episodes, I gave my rape story. And people will talk about it like, oh, the Me Too movement, and it was super empowering for women. And I'm like, but do you know why? So having conversations like that, these difficult conversations, kind of led to the other half of what I'm doing now, which is the professional speaking. I grew up as a theater kid, so I was always on stage. So it was just taking this easy way to have these conversations via podcast, which are brilliant, to taking them in front of people and having these same conversations.
Right.
And the third thing that I do, because I don't think that was the other belief system that I broke, is that once you choose a career, once you do this, that's all you do. You are known as this thing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't believe humans are like that. I don't believe we're made like that.
I agree.
So I took all of the expertise, because I did own a business for 10 years, and I turned it into what I call a lamplighter business. Not coaching, not training, not consulting or any of that, because people don't actually need a coach. You need a coach for basketball. You do the exact same thing day in and day out. And I'm going to see these little tiny tweaks that you need to move. But sometimes they just need somebody to talk to and to kind of light this path to say, that's where I want to be. How the F do I get there? Right? Like,
right.
What do I do? How do I simplify it? What can be paused? What can be done now? Who can I bring in? Can I think outside the box? Like, I don't have $5,000 for a website. Is there something I can value in trade? Like, I help people really see the big picture so that they can be more focused on
really
where
like
they
that.
want to go to change their own world, right?
Right.
So those are the three main things that I do now. Yeah.
I love that. And there was so many amazing things that you talked about right there. First off, just making that pivot and doing something that, made you feel happy inside. That's so important, because there's so many people that, like you said, like they realize what they're doing doesn't make them happy, but they just continue to do it anyway. They're too afraid to make that leap.
Yeah. The obligatory thing, the obligatory thought and what I'm supposed to do is one of the most detrimental things that you could
100%.
do to yourself.
100%.
Because when you are doing what you feel like you should be doing, 9 times out of 10, you're really miserable. And I'm not talking about paying bills or doing the dishes. Like, those are things that make sure that you sustain a living, right? Like, and that your house isn't filthy. I'm talking about, well, I really want to quit this job. I really hate working here, but I have to stay here because of the money.
Right.
Like, I said to somebody one day, okay, so are you a tree? It's like, no. And I said, then why are you acting like a tree? Why do we act like a tree? Like, now with quarantine happening, everybody goes, oh my God, I wish we had gone to Disneyland. Yeah, why didn't you? Right. It's actually less expensive to go to Disneyland than it is to go to most Broadway shows, or to, it's less expensive to go to Thailand. I don't know if you know this. It's less expensive to go to Thailand than it is to go for a 5-day trip in Disneyland.
Really?
So when people talk about how, well, I don't have the funds, I don't have the time, I don't have X, Y, and Z, that's bullshit. You're lying to yourself because you're believing these things that other people told you. Like, you can't travel the world because you're going to like end up in some sort of hostile horror movie type of thing, right? You can't go to Disneyland because it's so expensive. Like, so what? Do you know how much money we spend on fucking gaming quad stuff and like iPhones and iPads, and like $800 for an iPad, whereas $800 would actually buy you 2 whole days for a family of 3 in Disney.
Absolutely.
So it's not that you don't have the money, it's that you're afraid of the experience.
No. Yeah.
And that's
it really just comes down to it, the change in perspective and how you view those things, and stepping outside of your comfort zone and what you view as socially acceptable, right? Because a lot of people could totally do all those things that you were just talking about, but because society says that it's not like the quote unquote responsible thing to do with maybe your time or your money or with your family, like people, let that judgment take control in their lives, and it stops them from doing what experiences they really want to happen and enjoy. And that really is a sad thing. And a lot of people, unfortunately, let that happen to them. But that's why, like, through these conversations and through these podcasts, hopefully we can inspire people to take that step and live that life that they want to live. Yes,
absolutely. Because I do, especially with quarantine, if nothing else, quarantine in 2020 has shown us that you cannot continue to wait for something, right? Mm-hmm. And on the opposite side of that, well, people are going, okay, well, that's cool, but now I'm in quarantine. I can't do anything else. In September of 2019, before, the world exploded, I hadn't really done anything except for my podcast and started kind of doing some public speaking gigs. And I had 3 calendars to run my family my husband's, mine, and my son's. And I'm like, we have one child. My husband and I both work at home. And at the time, I wasn't really by definition working. So what the hell did we need 3 calendars for?
Right.
So 2020 has simultaneously shown us, like, stop waiting. Stop waiting for this. Stop telling some dude whose name is Chad on the other side of the world who thinks that he's special because he's some white kid that went to a pretentious private school is more important than you because of circumstantial stuff. Like, that's not true. Like, stop waiting for the permission. The permission is you are born and you are here.
Exactly.
That's your permission.
I love that.
And on the flip side of that, stop playing by their rules. Stop running yourself ragged and doing what you're quote unquote supposed to do because that's what's killing you.
Exactly.
They don't want you to thrive. They don't want you to break out of the box. They don't want you to make money because then if you do, they can no longer control you. It's very hard to control somebody who knows what their worth is, who knows what their happiness is, and who knows where they actually want to go. Like, I never want a Lamborghini. I think it's a penis showing contest. I think they're the stupidest cars on the planet. I never want a flashy car because it feels wasteful to me. But what I would like is an SUV to take my son and my husband and my brand new puppy camping for a weekend, right? Like, just pack the car and go. Like, that sounds fun to me. So it's just things like that. Like stop comparing yourself to these people that you should never, ever, ever ask their opinion in the first place. If you wouldn't trade places with somebody, why are you worried about what they think?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah.
And I mean, and just to piggyback off that, you can, of course, we can go really deep into this, but yeah, just the whole sheep or the herd mentality. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of profits and a lot of power in controlling people and having them be dependent on you. And for me, that's really what 2020 has shown, is that you can't be dependent on someone else, because as soon as you are, whether that be the government or someone else in your life, you're just going to be hung out there to dry. You got to be self-reliant. You have, like you said, you got to stop waiting, and you just got to go out there and do it. And when you take that power back, I mean, it not only does it feel great from within, but you'll just do so much more than what you ever thought was possible. And then you can share that experience with the people that you love, and then you can inspire other people, and then they'll start doing things that they love, and then it's just like this beautiful chain reaction, which all starts with you.
I love that. I love that you said that, because a lot of people will go, okay, but I mean, I can't make $1 billion on my Etsy shop. No, you can't. But I mean, you have that potential. However, why would you not still have an Etsy shop? Because you make, like in my example, I actually have an Etsy shop. I make homeschool games for kids and like all these random snarky posters and stickers. And like, I will create something and then post it on Etsy. It is not for anybody else. I don't have 50 things sitting in my corner that I've made. Right. I make them on demand because I make them and then I share them. And sometimes I sell them and it's fun for me. And why not? Like, that doesn't have to be my main source of income. Oprah has like 27 sources of income, and she's one of the richest women on the humans. Forget about the female side of it. She's one of the richest humans on the planet.
100%.
And she's got all these different sources of income. And so the other lie that we have is, no, this is the only way you make money. This is the only thing you do. This is why you have to stay in your lane. And it's not true. Like, I was a professional dancer, and my biggest regret is that I stopped dancing. And now I'm going to actually get on to a group. I hate Facebook, so I'm trying to figure out how to do it without doing
Facebook's so good. Stay away from Facebook, guys.
Right. I'm going to be teaching people how to condition their body. And I'm coming from it from a different perspective. Like, I was a former professional dancer, and now I'm a mom. I haven't really exercised in a few years. So I get you, right? Like, we're all going to start at square one, but this is what I know we can do. Just because I miss dancing. Like, it's the whole thing where you made a comment about how they are dependent on you. And it's my favorite analogy. Have you ever seen A Bug's Life?
Yes.
From Disney. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember at the very end, at one point the grasshoppers, who they're like in control and their power and everything, and they're in like Mexico or something.
I know what you're talking about.
And one of the minions, and he goes, yeah, so boss, we don't really have to go back and take care of the ants. And the boss says, yeah, but there was that one ant that stood up to me. And then they get up, and there's this big thing that holds like hundreds
like
and hundreds
peanut
of
jar or something. Seeds.
And he pops one out and he throws it at the guy, and he goes, did that hurt you? And he goes, no. And he pops another one out and throws it at his buddy. He goes, how about that one? Did that hurt you? He's like, no. And then the dude rips the like whole lid off, and they are literally killed and buried by thousands of seeds. And this is the most profound statement that I've ever heard in my entire life. The boss stands up and he says, they outnumber us 100-1. And when they figure that out, our way of life is over.
It gives me goosebumps just hearing you say that, because it's so true. It really is.
Right? Like 2020 has kind of proven that no. The corporations we don't need the corporations. Corporations need us.
Mm-hmm.
The way society is run right now with the powers that be, we don't need them to control everything. They need us to acquiesce and be compliant. Like the Black Lives Matter movement, I cried all the time because I would watch it and I would just feel the power and like the passion and these people lining up saying, no, I am done with your bullshit. And the reason people freaked out is because it unbalances the status quo.
Yeah.
When the status quo only works for a couple of people, where are you? Like, are you at the bottom of the rubble, or are you trying to climb your way out of it? Yeah. Or are you standing over in a field going, God, that's unfortunate.
Right.
So
that's actually a really interesting way to look at it when it does mess up that status quo. Because I think a lot of people did get their feathers ruffled from it, because it kind of gives them that wake up call of like, where do I stand in all this? Mm-hmm. Like, what am I doing with myself? Like, these people are standing up and, for the right thing to bring injustices and stopping all this stuff that's going on. Like, what am I doing that for in my own life? Like, when am I going to stand up and start making change that benefits myself? Mm-hmm. And when you're not doing that and you see other people doing it, it kind of puts you in this place where you're just like, whoa, like, what's going on right now? So I like that take on that. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it could be huge, that it inspires you to create an entire movement and become like super famous, like Greta Thunberg, and say, no, I was the little girl standing on a corner with a sign saying, why are you trying to kill your children? Right. Like, that's where she became famous, because that was her sign. Like, stop killing your children, because that is what is happening. But when you are so focused on yourself and you can't see or have the empathy for other people, you're probably not willing to change little things in your life to be able to help the other people. And I mean that in the sense, like, if you have a very narcissistic, controlling person in your life, be it your partner or your parent, right? Or a boss or something, you start to feel stuck because you no longer have boundaries, or you feel like you're being gaslighted, or you feel like you're going crazy. So why would you feel compelled or strong enough to go stand up in a movement like this if you're not strong enough to say, no, you can't treat me like this anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
So these movements and these things and what's happening with 2020 is it's forcing people to slow down. It's forcing them to really go, am I actually happy with what is happening right now? Like, yes, I was laid off of my job, but I kind of hated my job for the last 10 years. So maybe this was a blessing, and I can get unemployment and I don't actually have to do anything. I can play with my kid for like 3 months straight and nobody's going to judge me for it. I haven't worn real clothes except for today in months, right? Like, you gave me an excuse to get all dolled up. But what was happening is I was meditating more. I had a garden. My son and I made this epic study castle. When I'm like, all right, you're coming home from school, so we're going to go big or go home. And I made him a cardboard castle
that
he goes into every day to do his homework and his Zoom calls and stuff. And I'm noticing that people are either reflecting and being able to go in, or they're able to finally stand up and go out. Like the opposite of where they've been stuck for so long is finally blooming
Right.
and rebalancing.
Yes. And exactly. Like that's why that's such a profound way to look at it, because it really had this year, it really has given people the opportunity to just kind of look back on their lives and be like, what is going on in my life? What has been going on for the past like 5 years of my life that I've been putting up with? And how can I change that? Like, am I actually happy? And for a lot of people, like they've taken that action to start making that change. And for some people, it's just been a wake up call. So they're frustrated with it. But like and that might suck right now. But like that's just the beginning steps to making that change that you eventually want to happen. So yeah, I mean, it's just that perspective of like how you've really looked at this year. Like it's easy to say like, man, this year sucked. Like we've had all these, our freedom's taken away because we had to stay inside and all this other things. But like at the flip side of it, you've had this so much time to, like you said, reflect on yourself and realize like, is what I'm doing and what's going on around me really for me? Isn't it an alignment for me? And like that right there is like, you can't put a price tag on that. Like, yeah, you may have lost your job and you may have lost a few months of income, but like that self-knowledge that you just got is going to change your life and allow you to blossom into something that you have always wanted to be, that you didn't even know that you wanted for yourself.
Yeah, it's totally true. And like, that's part of where How to Be a Badass-ish came from, is because we don't talk about the hard conversations. We don't talk about failing. We hear all of these like gurus and all these amazing people who go, oh my gosh, well, I make $10 million and this is what I did. And their fail story is like 34 seconds during their entire thing.
Right.
Where they're like, yeah, it sucked. And I lived in a 1-room college dorm and I ate top ramen all the time. And I'm like, so did most people. Like, I know that you didn't go from a college dorm and top ramen to being a multi-billionaire and known all over the world. Like, what the fuck happened in between that? That's a long time frame.
Facts.
That's a chunk of stuff that's missing, right?
Yes.
So, How to Be a Badass-ish actually came from celebrating your failures. Like, why don't we celebrate our failures and the things that aren't working? Because to me, that's like a really great highlighted billboard, right? When something fails epically, and I can say this in my life, and I talk about this specifically with 2020 because, as you said, people lost their job, people lost months of income. It was like the first quarter was nothing but full-fledged panic for most people, right? Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right. And now things have sort of kind of balanced out, not even balanced out. They've smoothed out in your brain, like, well, we're still here. Like, I can't change it, right? I'm not a scientist. I cannot make a vaccine, and we have flat earthers. So why are we surprised that there's people that believe that science isn't real and this isn't actually a virus? Like, so I can't change that. But it's when you talk about failures, we talk about them in the sense like that's the worst possible thing that could ever happen. When you lose a job, which, by the way, my husband lost 2 this year, not 1, 2 in 2020. And now he's running his own business. And his business is exploding because he just kind of went, no, I'm done. There is no such thing as quote unquote job security. And I'd rather take care of people. And when people say, oh, well, I don't have enough money and money is so hard to come by and I can't get enough. You've never found a dollar bill on the street. Like, you don't have money in your bank account. You didn't just go out to dinner. You didn't just pay your car payment. Like, maybe you don't have an excess at this second, but you're telling me that you've never been able to pay a bill. You've never been able to buy a drink. You've never been able to go to a restaurant or buy your kid a toy or your partner, I don't know, sexy lingerie or an Xbox or something, like whatever, right? Like, so it's also the terminology that people will say, oh, I can't do this, or this is so hard. Is it? Or is that what you've been trained to believe? Because I mean, to me, money kind of flows into my life all the time. Like, for example, I will do it on purpose just to get that excited, like, whoa, I found money, right? I will hide $20 bills in my winter coats or in like the off season's clothes so that when I put them on the next time in 6 months, oh, I found a $20 bill, right? Like I totally did it to myself, but it still makes me happy. And it solidifies in my brain that no, money always comes in weird random ways. Maybe I'm not getting $1 million deposit, but I'm getting a random $25 and I found another dollar bill and somebody just bought something from my Etsy store and whatever. And with the failure aspect, there has not been a single wonderful, amazing, life-changing event that was not directly on the tail end of one of the worst moments of my life. There's not a single one. Not a single one.
Absolutely.
For example, in 2020 or in 2012, my husband and I became homeless. And it was a legal thing. We were illegally thrown out of our apartment and it was a whole thing. We did what most people would do. We panicked and we started selling off furniture and we held on, we tried so hard. And I know people do this all the time. We were holding on with tooth and nail to try to stay in that apartment instead of just letting it go. And when we were finally by the universe drug out like on our butts of this apartment, we ended up being welcomed into this home by these people who basically became like an adopted family for us. And they healed a whole bunch of family traumas and a whole bunch of stuff that my husband and I had never experienced before. We saw what healthy families could be like with children.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I have a son. It is the only reason I have a son. So if you can look back and go, okay, where have I epically failed and what has come out of that? Sometimes just that understanding and acknowledgement is like so powerful and so game changing for you.
It is.
And that's where 2020 for me has been like, okay, yes, this is a dumpster fire of a year. Let's not sugarcoat this. It is absolutely a shit show right now. However, dumpster fires are sort of a poetic justice because everything that was in that dumpster was trash anyway.
Yeah.
So like, let it burn, man.
Exactly. And that's another, there's been so much that I've learned honestly over this past year that I would have never have otherwise had to have learned because of the circumstances that we're all in now. And that's one of them too, is that failure really is part of the process. And without failure, you won't ever get to the lengths that you've always wanted to. It really is like it's like the yin and yang. There's all balance. Like you can't appreciate the good in your life without first having the bad. And
Absolutely
again, it's just that perspective of it, of realizing like, what can I learn from this experience? And there's always something to learn. And for you to say that, oh, this is just unfortunate. Why is this happening to me? All this other crap. Like that's simply not true. Like it's literally happening to you for a reason, for you to get something out of it. But that's up to you to have that mental state to be like, or that mental capacity to be like, hey, what is this trying to teach me? And when you can get those lessons out of your failures, it jumpstarts you to the lengths that you would have otherwise thought would take you, months or years to otherwise get to. And again, it just comes back to that just perspective. Like perspective is everything when it like it sounds cliche, but like it's so true. And then like with money is just another form of energy, just like anything else in life. And when you say like I don't have money, or I can't do this because of money, which is the easy way to go to have that cop out. Of course, like money's not going to come to you. I mean, you're literally throwing out a vibration that is opposite of abundance. So why would it come to you? So yes, it's easy to say those type of things, but like if you really just understand that, like again, that this is part of the process, and shift your mindset to a more positive place, or at least like do your best to do that. That's when things start to come together slowly but surely. It may not be according to the plan that you thought it would align with, but the universe, always has a plan for you. And if you keep that in your head, in the back of your head, like it eventually will come around. You just got to keep that hope.
Now, to be fair, just because this is who I am and this is part of what I do, is when people say, well, just change your perspective and just change your mindset. I was one of those people in 2018 that I would just laugh at you and get, okay, cool. How do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I do that? Because my reality at this moment is, if I don't work, I don't feed my kid. If I don't deal with this asshole client, then they're not going to pay me, which means that I won't get money, which means I won't pay my kid or be able to feed my kid. If I don't feed myself, then I'm going to be put into a hospital if I can't afford the hospital bills, if I don't work. Like, so it's a spiral thing. And people will go, but okay, that's so easy to say that. How do I break out of it? 2020 is everybody's massive excuse to go, yeah, I'm not going to do that today. Mm-hmm. Like 2020, take advantage of the fact that nobody is happy about 2020, not spiritual leaders, not people who are in power, not people who are not in power. Nobody is enjoying this year because this is a hard reset for the entirety of the human race. Yeah. Because where we were going, well, let's put it this way. In March, when Portland went on to quarantine, it was the first time in almost 15 years there wasn't a school shooting. It was the first time in 15 years that our children who were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old weren't being gunned down in their public school. So just to kind of put that into perspective, right? Like 2020 is a massive reset because of the path that we were on. We were basically in a Lamborghini on a switchback road going 120 miles an hour headed for a brick wall. Like that's where the human race was at.
Yeah.
2020, if you have been one of those people who go, well, if I don't do this, then this doesn't happen. If I don't do this, then this doesn't happen. And feeling like if you don't keep all those plates moving and juggling up above your head, if one falls, they all fall. You know what? Let them fall. Let them fall. This is an experimental year. Because if you lose your job, they are handing out unemployment like Tic Tacs because they're so inundated that they don't even care. Like they're not going through the same process. They just want people to be able to feed themselves. They're handing out SNAP and like Medicaid, again, like Tic Tacs. So if you lose everything, okay, cool. They won't turn off your power. They won't turn off your water. You will be able to get food. There's food boxes galore happening right now.
Yeah.
And the other side of it, the internet is the most magical thing ever. Yeah. Case in point, you and I both have these awesome podcasts. You're in Seattle, I'm in Portland, and we're having this great conversation. And I then agree. Thousands of people are going to be able to have this conversation, right? Yes. Like, so at the same time that 2020 is like the perfect excuse, right? It's the perfect excuse to not do anything. Are you having a really, really crappy day? You know what? Call in and say, I can't today. I just can't today. Nobody's going to even question why you can't. It's because they're in the same year that you are in, right? They're in the same time that you are living through, and they're going to go, okay. And then turn on whatever your favorite, like mindless show is. Get your favorite snacks from Instacart because you can have them delivered to you. You don't even have to leave your house. Put on your pajamas and just veg for the day. Like, when was the last time you did that on purpose? Not because you were so broken and so just like, I don't want to do anything, or I can't do anything, or I'm so depressed that I can't get up. When was the last time you did something just because it made you happy?
Right.
Go outside and sit in your yard and do nothing. Just the nothingness. To do nothing is one of the hardest things that humans in this era can do. And yet it's one of the most necessary things. So for me, I went from putting in my brain constantly all of the pieces that I needed to keep in place, all the things that I needed to keep juggling, to keep my status quo, to keep everybody where they needed to be, right? For me, I was in survival mode and had no idea I was in survival mode. So when I had my full-fledged mental breakdown, I joke about how it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I started doing nothing. And I mean nothing. There was the first day I remember I went out onto my porch and I sat there for 6.5 hours during the day. And the first 2 hours were the hardest for me because I kept going in and checking my phone like, oh my God, I don't have my phone right here. I know somebody died. I know they did because I'm outside and I don't have my phone right in front of me and I'm not checking Facebook. Like I could tell the addiction was there. And after 2 hours, nobody was home. Like we didn't have a dog. My son was playing at a friend's because it was pre-COVID. My husband was like at a networking thing doing what he does. And if I had been doing something, I would have been staring at a screen or scrolling through Facebook. I didn't actually have any deadlines that day. I didn't have anything to do. Laundry is always there, so that's never a priority, right? And the dishes are always there. So I went outside and that 6 hours of doing nothing without a phone was unbelievably game-changing for me because I felt my cortisol drop. I felt my brain start to calm down. I felt my body start to go, okay, there's other things that we could do. There's other possibilities. I started to think about things that we could do solely because they were fun that I never would have thought of and I never would have even fathomed doing if I hadn't started celebrating that nothingness, right?
Yeah, right.
Actually meditating. It's not frou-frou. There's science behind it. Like actually meditating and sitting in nothing and just being without a screen.
Exactly.
That's how you get from that chaotic to, nope, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the world. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Just intentionally being in nothingness. I really like that. And people, in today's world, like we're always in that go hamster wheel type mentality. And when people feel almost guilty to do that, just to sit there and be in nothingness. And like, that's, you shouldn't feel that way. Like that's you time. Like that's self-healing time. That's time for you to have that game-changing mindset, that game-changing epiphany and then you just never know what's going to happen after that. Like once you start incorporating those self-help moments and activities, man, it really is, like you said, a game changer.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the self-care. I actually hate the word self-care because when you think of self-care, you immediately think of like baths and going and getting pedicures and, like face masks and whatever. Yeah. My self-care is going back out onto my balcony and not talking to anybody for about 2 hours. I don't bring my phone out. I just sit there. I sit there with my tea and I'll come back in and refresh my tea and then I'll go back out. And I no longer feel guilty because what happened is I realized after all of this and after the shutdown and when I started to really pay attention and really go, okay, I have to do what I need to do to make me a better human because right now I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good business owner. I'm not a good human. I hated everything about my life and who I was. And when I started to actually realize I am a true introvert, I recharge when I am completely alone and in silence. That's the other thing. And sometimes I need 2 hours. Sometimes I need 10 minutes. Like I just need that reset. And when I actively do that, and now my 7-year-old will say to me, Mama, you seem like you're having a rough day. Do you need some alone time? And like, we'll carry me downstairs to my craft room so that he's not, so that I can be alone and recharge.
That's so sweet.
Because he realized that it has nothing to do with him. When I am taking care of myself, I can be a better mom. I can be a better wife. I can be a better business owner. I can be a better speaker. And absolutely. I'm a much better person to be around. For my husband, it's the opposite. He's an extrovert. So he will go and have like movie night and game night and go and be in the chaos of our little quarantine pod and have all of them run around. And he thrives on that. He thinks it's the best thing ever. And I'm like, you go and do that. And I will be here waiting for you, babe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, it's all about finding what works for you. What is your what recharges you? It's not about it. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's not about like what works for them or what works for your friends. Like you really have to sit back for a second and figure out what works best for you, because that's all that matters, and that's what's truly going to recharge you for whatever is to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And stop feeling guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guilt is something that was implanted into you that is non-existent. It's like saying there's actually screechers that are going to come out of the wall when you're at night, right? Like you don't have any fear of being watched or having ghosts or having things come out of your walls in the middle of the day. But when it's the middle of the night and you're home alone, that's all of a sudden where you're like, oh my God, there's a murderer in the house, right? It's the same type of thing with feeling guilty. Like you feel guilty because of something somebody else said. But the truth is, when you figure out what works for you and actually take care of you, you're just a better person. And then you can do all of these things. Like you can write that book, you can do the podcast, you can have the Etsy store, you can start your own business because it's 2020 and all you need is an idea and an internet connection and you can have a business up and running in 20 minutes.
That's like, what I tell that to people all the time. Like when they feel like they're just like, they're always going and they feel like, man, I don't ever have time to do this and that and that. That's one thing I always offer to people is find what truly works for you as far as a reset to get your energy back. And you will figure out that all that time that you thought you were wasting or guilty by taking that time to reset, you will now be so much more productive and everything else that you once thought you were wasting time on, that it's, you're just going to laugh and be like, why didn't I do this before? Like
because of programming.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's because of programming.
Yeah. There's so many, programs in our heads that were put into us from when we were children that we need to reset on. But
it's true.
Yeah, we're getting there.
They can't assume that it's easy.
No.
Like I never said this was easy. I said it was worth it.
No.
That's the difference.
And people think like when we have these type of podcasts or these type of conversations that it's always going to be like, you know, like this easygoing stuff and like it's never going to be hard to make change. But it's just like, no, like this shit is like tough, man. Like you're talking about going from the inside and changing things that you've been telling yourself since you were a child. Like there is nothing easy about that. Or like it's gonna literally like it'll bring you to tears at times. You're just
and
like
it should.
Exactly. Like that's how you know you're making progress, is when it brings you to tears, because you're just like, wow, like all that toxicity that I used to put myself through and literally put on myself. Like, other people, you know, put stuff on you too, but a lot of times like we're our own worst enemy. And when you realize that you've been doing that to yourself and now you want to change that, oh my God, like it really is just moving. I can't even put it into words.
It's true. And I love that you said that, because one of the things, my husband started going through this and he said to me, he goes, I feel really embarrassed because I'm crying all the time. And I said, when was the last time you actually cried? Because I remember one time my husband ever cried in front of me, and it was when we were about to be homeless, right? Like when you're just like, oh my God. And he goes, well, I think that was actually the last time I really cried. And I said, okay, so crying, we have trained ourselves that it is one of the weakest things that you could do, which blows my mind, because when you cry, you're literally cleansing your body. That's why your tears taste like salt, because it's getting rid of all of that excess energy. It's a form of waste for your body. The difference between tears and urine is one is from food, the other one is from emotions, because it gets trapped into your body. Science has proved this. You could look this up. Like energy really exists. Quantum physics is proving what witches have known for eons. And you get these things that are trapped inside of your body. And when you finally release that, it's such a massive release. Yes, cry. My God, cry until you throw up. Like seriously, sob until you like your entire body hurts. Because when you can do that, when you can let it go and just cry as hard as your body wants to for that 5, 10, 20 minutes, it doesn't last 3 hours like when you're trying to hold it back. It only lasts for a few minutes because your body just needs to feel it and process it. And then it's able to transcend it and just move on. And from men and from women, because you're both human, right? So it's to tell men, or what we have conditioned men is that crying is weak. I'm going, really? Because when you hold all that shit in your body, what happens to the strong person? Like, he's no longer a strong person. He's lashing out at everybody. Instead of protecting his partner, he's abusing his partner. Like, instead of teaching and protecting his child, he's abusing his child. And he's not even meaning to, because he's so angry because he can't release all of this stuff and it's just trapped inside there. It's literally a ticking time bomb.
Right.
That's what happens when men don't cry and don't release it and don't let it go. It comes out. It just comes out in many different forms.
100%.
Like,
and like you said, like, it's, you know, when you cry, instead of it lasting 3 hours, like, shit, screw 3 hours. Like, some people let that stuff in forever and it lasts a lifetime, you know? And like, people literally just live daily in that agony. Whereas like, if they can just let it out, man, like, oh my God, it will literally change your life. And one of the books that I actually read, it was called Mask of Masculinity. That was a game changer for me. And that was, it was written by, I think he was an ex-football player. And, you know, in that life, like, you're always taught to like be tough and all this stuff. You can't show your pain. But men in general are told that. And he talks about the many masks, and one of them is like that, the emotional mask, and how as a man, like, we were told we can't share our emotions. We can't let that stuff out because it makes us look weak and stuff like that. And when you hold that stuff in, especially for as long as you do, you know, it's just going to hold you back in your growth. And then, you know, there's like the sexual mask, and then the money mask, and there's a few more. But it just goes to show like how much like society puts on us to tell us that you have to be a certain way, this cookie cutter way. And if you're not that way, like, there's something wrong with you. And when you live your life like that, like pretending to be someone else, like, oh man, it's just such a sad thing, you know? And when you finally really break out of that, you know, it really is a game changer, but you have to have that faith in yourself.
You do, and you have to be willing to it's not even weakness. I can't even say it with a straight face. It's not weakness. You have to be strong enough to be able to let this go. Like, my husband, I will talk about how he cries and how we have these conversations and whatever. And my husband, I'm in awe of him, like, all the time. He's one of the strongest, most powerful men I've ever met in my entire life. And he understands the other side of it. He's like, well, you know, you have to be a powerful man to actually love a powerful woman, because on the other side of it, when you have these men who are willing to actually be human, because right now, the way that men are from like the 1960s up, like, they're robots. They're not men, right? You stopped being human the moment you started to suppress all of this stuff and decide that you needed to control everything and everyone involved in your life. And when you can let that go, it's astounding what you can do as a human male, and how powerful you can be, and what you can do, and how you can change the world, and how inspirational you can be to children, and how strong and amazing you could be to the women in your life, whether you're gay, straight, or otherwise, or married or partnered or whatever. If you can be the type of man that actually lifts up the people in your life, that's one of the most powerful, empowering, amazing things that you can do. But you can't do that if 90% of you is being suppressed because only weak men cry. No, only weak men hold all of that shit in until you're exploding and your life completely falls apart and nobody wants to be around you anymore because you're no longer a human. They can't touch you. There's no intimacy. There's no connection there, because they know you're holding back. They know you're withdrawing stuff. They know you're refusing to open up. So a lot of times relationships will end. Actually, my husband and I are starting a podcast about relationships and marriage and all of this stuff because we have these conversations. Relationships end because one or both people is afraid to actually be human.
Yeah.
Not open up, not be intimate, not be in love. They're afraid to be human. They hide so much of what is naturally us that's the other person knows. They feel it. They can't. If you can't connect to somebody, you're not going to stick around. You're just not.
Yeah. I really like that.
Anyway, that was a total left turn tangent
It was
on
good though.
all the things, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. The funny part about this is that this is we're, usually these things last like an hour, and we're running up on 50 minutes right now. We're on the first question still, so this is good.
Question. Well, hello, my name is Amanda, and
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
I like this though. This has been good so far. But let's move on to the next question.
Is all the time, like all the time. I don't.
But
Anyway.
I mean, but of course though, I mean, this is why I loved when you said it about your podcast, and this is why I wanted one of the inspirations and theses behind my podcast too. It's just having those conversations that are otherwise tough to have and that people don't want to have and don't want to talk about. But for me personally, like I live for that. Like I love those type of conversations.
Right.
So yeah, this has been wonderful so far.
I'm enjoying it. I'm truly enjoying it. And I don't think people don't want to have the conversations. I think that just makes them so uncomfortable, and they don't know how to deal with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They don't know how to deal with being ashamed or sad or angry in a healthy way. They don't know how to be uncomfortable in a healthy way, right? And so
that's a good way of putting it. Like vulnerability, it's a scary thing. It really is.
Yeah.
But there's so much healing in that state.
Yeah.
But again, that's one of those programs or one of those conditions that we've been put on ourselves. But it's very empowering to have these talks.
Yes. True.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to try for the other the other questions and see if I can go fast?
All right. Let's do it. We'll see how it goes. All right. So for this next one, in the healing journey that I've been going on since quarantine started, I've really realized the power of reconnecting with your inner child and how keeping that alive can make your life just that much more cheerful. So that's where this next question comes from. And it's, what are some activities that you enjoyed doing in your youth that kind of helped you feel alive and at peace?
That's a good question. They are the things that I do now to bring me peace. They brought me peace when I was a child, and I came full circle because I realized this is actually important. This year, I bought myself a bikini. And I wore it all the time. And I remember my mom's like, Amanda, like, you're not a dancer anymore, right? She started down the path that most people do, like, oh, you're not a dancer, and maybe you shouldn't be wearing a bikini. And I stopped her and I said, listen, I have spent 30 years hating myself, hating some aspect of myself, of the body that I have, of the little girl inside me, of the traumas that have happened, of the things that I have said, the things that have been done to me. I've spent 30 years of my life hating who I am. Right. And now she needs some loving and she needs some sunshine. So I'm going to wear the goddamn bikini and I'm going to go out. I'm going to be in the sun because my tummy deserves just as much sunshine as my face does. Mm-hmm. And when I was a little girl, I was one of those girls who was always called bossy because I always had an opinion. I always wanted to tell you what I was thinking. I felt something very compelled to tell you what was important to me. At the time, I had no idea I was channeling. I had no idea that I was actually getting information directly from the source that was pertinent to you. And I would word vomit this stuff on people. And they would tell me that I was bossy. They would tell me that I was too much, that I was too opinionated. I was too loud. I was always too whatever. Right. And where I found happiness and where I found solace was actually spending time by myself in the corner, coloring and drawing and being creative. I used to make epic cardboard box structures. Like one time I made a 57 Chevy for my sister. It was a pink Cadillac. It was not a 57 Chevy. It was a pink Cadillac. And I painted the whole cardboard box. It had fins on it. It actually had a little windshield that I put saran wrap on. It had a working radio with like the cassette tape in there. Like, I mean, it was out of cardboard, right? It was epic. It was epic. And it was the only time that I actually felt completely calm and completely like in tap with source and with myself. And so I don't find it funny. I find it very interesting that circling back, 30 years later, at 37 years old now, I find my peace by being creative and being
Absolutely.
crafty and designing stuff and drawing stuff. And now, instead of just showing my grandma my cool picture that she can put up on the fridge, now I sell it on Etsy because somebody else might find it to be fun as well, right? So I think honoring your inner child is one of the most powerful things that you could do, because your inner child stops growing at about 7 years old. And any conditioning you had before that, any belief systems that you had, if you don't acknowledge that, you're never going to actually heal. And one of the most powerful things that you could do is look in the mirror and talk to the little kid inside of you.
Yes.
And let them know that they are loved and they are safe.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they're not loved by other people. Do you love them? Because that's where that all starts.
And that's why I love this question. First off, because a lot of people that feel lost in their adulthood, if you can go back to those childlike experiences and transform that into what you do in your adult world, it'll make you a much happier and cheerful person, like how you just mentioned. Like, as far as being creative, obviously you have the the adult version of what that is now, but it's still that childlike activities. And then second off, so like I said, I've been doing a lot of inner healing journeys since in this past quarantine experience. That's great. One of them was a guided meditation where I talked to my inner child. And I had no idea, without going too much into it, I did have a rough childhood growing up with my mother, actually. And I had no idea. I always knew those traumas existed, but I had no idea how much pain my inner child was in and how much that was affecting who I was in my adult life. And I was actually able to go back into this and see my inner child and talk to them and just say that, like you said, like, I do love you and I do care about you and everything is going to be okay. And we're going to get through this together and we're going to be here for each other. And I just remember actually through that, I was meditating, so my eyes were closed, but I was literally just crying through my closed eyes. And it was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever been a part of. And it was all thanks to reconnecting with my inner child. And it sounds like crazy if you haven't done anything like this or, looked into it at all, but and I thought it was, mumbo jumbo too. But when I actually did it, it was, man, it was, I really can't put it into words. It was an amazing, beautiful experience. And that's, ultimately, again, why I love this question, because it really is life changing for so many people. Because we're told, as we get into adults, that all this stuff is for the past and it's silly and that's nonsense. But, if you're able to incorporate that again into the life that you're living today, that's another game changer. Yeah.
And it's not silly. It's not nonsense. That's another programming and implant that we've been conditioned to believe, right? And I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited that you did that, because metaphysical stuff is still considered fringe, which is hilarious to me because that's a white person thing. The Aztecs, the Indians, the Native Americans, the Chinese, the entire African continent, even in Ireland and Scotland, the whole metaphysical and touching and getting in touch with yourself and nature and going out and meditating. I mean, for God's sakes, warriors used to go out for 3 days by themselves to survive. And it was never just to survive. They knew how to survive. They knew how to hunt and they knew how to fish. I mean, they had done it since childhood. They went out so that they could actually be by themselves, and they go on their dream walks, right? And actually touch back in with who they are and what they're meant to be and what they can bring to their community and their society and their world, and how can they be a better person. That's what all of those were for. So it's not new. It's not totally fringe. It's been weird for about 150 years. That's it. Yeah. But prior to that, the 10,000 years prior to that, that was something everybody did and they were expected to do. Exactly. So I'm really glad that men like you are bringing it back and going, it's no longer like, I feel like women needed to kind of lead that charge to make it okay and make it safe. And
I
now
agree.
you have the men coming and going, okay, no, I could do this. Like, my wife isn't going to leave me. My girlfriend doesn't think that I'm an idiot or like I'm weird or, I'm not man enough to be able to do this. Like, it's becoming much more of an acceptance, and it's healing everybody in these profound ways. And it's needed, and I'm really happy and thankful to hear men have conversations like this and podcasts like this, and to talk about how, like, you went through this experience and you couldn't not cry because of just the amount of release and like the healing that you felt. Like, to me, that's one of the strongest things that you could do, because again, this is not easy,
It's
but
not
it is worth it.
100%
It's totally
worth
worth
it.
it. So yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I really genuinely appreciate that. Seriously.
Yeah.
And that's of course one of the things that I want to and plan to accomplish with this podcast, is just showing people that there is strength in that. 100%.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you for acknowledging that.
Yes, of course. Of course.
So, all right. For our next question here, and this one isn't necessarily to, make you look silly or anything like that. It's just more so to show that we're all human beings and we all have things that we're not necessarily the best at, or maybe there's things that we want to improve on. So the next question is pretty straightforward. What are some things that you are not very good at?
Peopling. I will answer that without hesitation. I am not good at peopling. I thought I would. I used to lie to myself all the damn time about it. I'm not I'm not good. We always say on like job interviews and whatever, oh, I'm totally a people person, right? No, I was a graphic and web designer, and one of the main things that I had to do for my business was people. Right. I had to do a lot of conversations, a lot of consultations. That's actually kind of where I dipped my toe back into the professional speaking, because I would do these conferences and I would teach all of these things live. Okay, now here's the thing that people misunderstand a lot is I am 100% a true introvert. And I did not understand what that meant for a very long time. What that means is I'm not awkward in social situations. I was a theater kid. Like, I get on stage, I perform just as well in front of 20 people as well as 20,000 people. Like, really, I'm not intimidated at all. I'm really good in front of it. And when I'm doing these consultations, like, people assume that I'm just straight up an extrovert because I'm so good at it and I'm able to do all this stuff. The problem that always happened is I would always dismiss what my needs were, which was recharging. And I didn't understand that when my social anxiety would get to a point where I would have to leave, it was not because I wasn't having panic attacks in the traditional sense. I was having panic attacks because my battery was so depleted that it was like, warning, right? And so I would have to go to recharge. Very much like I figured out with my family. Like, one of the best things my husband does for me now is he'll pack up the son and the dog and he'll go somewhere for a couple of hours just to give me space, because I recharge being alone. So when I was obligated to do all the peopling and be around people all the time and do consultations all the time, and it was so exhausting and draining, and I like, there's not really words for it. So when I say something that I'm not good at, it's peopling. Like, I love humans. I don't like people. I know that's so
I can resonate with that.
I'm also an INFJ, so anybody that does the Myers-Briggs, like, they'll get that. Like, but it's because I'm an introvert, and some of the nuances and like the small talk, which is one of the reasons I was so excited about your podcast, because I knew we were going to talk about the deep shit. I knew we were. And I can't do surface level conversations. Like, I can see the weather is crappy. I don't need to do that, right? Like, so that's my massive shortcoming. And for the longest time, I felt really bad. I felt like an awful person. I felt very guilty by admitting, like, I'm not good at people. I'm not. And when I acknowledge that it's not that I don't want to help people, it's not that I don't have a lot to offer, it's not that I can't be really awesome and inspiring and empowering and whatever in front of people, it's that I can't do that all the time.
Right.
It has to be like I can do the public speaking for you, I could do your event, and I could really like just show off and have an awesome event for you for like 3 hours, but then please don't talk to me the rest of the night. Right? Like, so figuring out that massive balance and being able to take care of myself and still show up for humans as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense, because I feel like there was a lot of contradicting information.
No, I actually I really like that take on that, because I'm an introvert myself, and really, you know, it really goes to show, like, a lot of people think like introverts, like, you aren't able to you know, get out in front of people and have like those conversations, like we're you know, we're like wallflowers and stuff like that. But um you know, we're human beings at our core. We're able
Yeah.
to communicate and connect with people, and anybody can do that regardless of your personality type. But like you said, taking that time to reset so you can continue to have those experiences is very important. And it's very important to distinguish again that you're not incapable of having those conversations or having those connections, but you have to take that time for yourself, depending on who you are as a person, to recharge and do it all over again. And I'm honestly, I'm going to take that and incorporate it into my life too. Cause you know, I'm like you, like how I'm able to get out and talk in front of people. But at the same time, like there's times where I feel that anxiety, and I've always thought like, oh, it's just because I'm an introvert. That's why I'm feeling this anxiety. But that's actually a really good take, as far as like, no, it's not because I need to go talk in front of these people or have this conversation with these people. It's just because maybe I need to go, you know, chill back and recharge for a little bit. And so then I'm able to better have that conversation. So I
Yeah.
really like
Yeah.
that. I think that's very helpful for myself and other fellow introverts out there. Like, don't
Yeah.
discount yourself and think that you can't go and have these connections because you're an introvert. Just maybe take a step back and be like, hey, I need to recharge so I can have this conversation. Because we've all had those moments where it's just like a magical experience connecting with other people, you know? So don't ever like discount yourself and think that you can't have that because of who you are. I just I liked your take on that, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the other side of that too is once you figure out what recharges you and what helps you, again, you're helping the people in your life.
Yeah.
For example, when I told my husband, because I didn't know, right? I said, I think I'm an introvert. I think I just need space to myself. I feel like, because when I'm by myself, I actually recharge really well, but I feel like I'm getting such small bits that I can't really prove this theory. So in 2019, maybe it was, I don't remember what year it was, my husband gave me the best birthday present ever. And he went away for my birthday. He took my son and went to his hometown for literally 3 or 4 days. And people were like, so what did Jeremy do for your birthday? I'm like, he left me home. And at first they're like, oh, that's the worst thing ever. I'm going, no. The rewards that man got, like, just trust me. Okay. So, and it was because he understood it was not about him. It was truly about me. It was allowing me to have that space to recharge and do whatever I needed to do to fill my battery back up so that I could actually function and be a loving partner for him. And I mean, it was a game changer. And when he saw that, because it all started as a joke, like he wanted to go visit his buddy. I said, you know what, just leave me at home. And then it turned into a real conversation.
Right.
And for a while, he's like, are you sure? Like, are you positive? Like, your birthday is literally on Saturday. Are you sure you want me to leave Friday and not come home until Monday? I was like, yes, I'm sure. So, and now he does that on a regular basis because he knows for me to have that space means that I can show up for him. And when I'm doing some big event and I'm about to speak in front of a couple hundred people, the first thing that I will do the day before is I won't talk to a single person. I won't engage with anybody, not my family, not my friends, not my spouse, not my child, nobody, like very minimal human interaction. And then that following day, not only am I on, but they don't believe that I'm an introvert at all, because I'm able to last much longer and be around and help people and answer a lot more questions on that day. So yeah, the anxiety is usually not the actual speaking. The anxiety is that you're going in with 20% battery.
Exactly. I love that so much, so much.
Yeah.
And I actually just wrote that down, like just to, again, to incorporate into my daily life. And this is for everybody, take the time to recharge so you can show up in other areas of your life. Like, I love that. That's a great nugget of knowledge. And, of course, do it according to your personality. But, just taking that time is a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
We understand that if your cell phone is at 20%, then you probably should plug it in before you could do anything.
True.
And yet we don't do that with our own bodies.
True.
So
that's a great way of putting it.
We just keep thinking, I just push through it to drink another cup of coffee instead of taking that actual 20-minute nap, right? Like,
right, facts. Gotta love those 20-minute naps.
Yeah. Never hate your bed. That's what my grandpa used to say. Never be angry at your bed.
So true. Okay. So for this next question, if there was one helpful thing that you could tell your past self, what would that be?
You're worth it.
I love that.
I was one of those people that truly believed I wasn't worth anything, that I was not important, that I was not needed, I was not loved. And I know so many of us believe that because, fucking look around. As a female, I can't open a magazine without being told how ugly and old and fat I am. Like, I can't walk through the grocery store without being told that I'm a terrible mom because I don't have my son attached to my hip and he plays Fortnite because that's his only connection to children right now, like in 2020. So he plays Fortnite all the time, like way too much screen time, but he's not in school and he's an extrovert and I'm not going to take away his way of recharging.
Right.
I will deal with the screens after he's able to be with humans again. Right.
Yeah, 100%.
And we believe so many of the lies. We follow Instagram and think, oh my God, if I could only look like that model. There's actually a model. I love her because she will do the super sexy model stuff. And then she'll relax her body and take a picture like that. And she's like, literally nothing is real. And I was a graphic designer for many years. And I can tell you those things that you see in the magazines, I did a lot of airbrushing. I did a lot of pinching and photo editing. Those girls in the magazines don't look like those girls in the magazines. Like the picture does not even look like the human that the picture was taken of after somebody like me got done with it.
Right.
None of them. So for me, if I were to go back, I would say, you know what? You are worth it because you're alive.
100%.
And that's enough. You're
100%.
a human and you are breathing and you have your own brain capacity and you have the capacity to love other people. You are worth it. Like, what else do you need to be a human?
Exactly. And my wife actually the other day, she's like, what's one thing that you're grateful for right now? And that was actually my answer was, just being alive, just being human. And to go on to your note of you saying, what's one thing that you could tell yourself? And it's that you're worth it. I love that so much. Not only because it is true, we're all worth it, but also like that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast too, was just when I say that this is a podcast about the people, I truly mean that from the standpoint of anyone that comes on, anyone and everyone is welcome on this show. It doesn't matter your walk of life because I truly 100% believe that we all have something to bring to the table. Yeah. And it may not, what you have to say may not be for everybody, but for the people that it is for the people that you do connect to, the profound effects that you'll have in their life is just amazing. And without you first coming on here and believing in yourself and having the courage to say what you have to say, that person would have never have found that nugget of knowledge to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
So I love what you had to say. I really do.
Oh, thank you. Do we have time for just a little story? Because it's pertinent to all of this.
Sure.
My friend has this analogy that I think is amazing. And it's, if you imagine a plant growing out of a pond, right? When the plant is just a really tiny baby, if a drop falls into the water, it's little tiny ripples, right? But as that plant grows and gets stronger and like deals with all of the things and believes in itself and like gets to this point where it's this beautiful like tree or whatever, that droplet still falls, but it falls from a much higher point, that when it falls down, those ripples are endless, right?
Mhm.
And her thought process with that is, you fail harder and you fail faster, because the more you can do that, the more ripples you're going to send out, the more waves that are going to come back in. Like you have
Exactly.
no idea what your story will do for other people. You have no idea what you have overcome will become a guidebook for other people.
100%. Couldn't say it
So
better myself. It really is though. Like we literally, it's so easy to tell ourselves that like we're not worth anything and like no one gives a damn. But like the emotions that you're experiencing are so similar to someone else. Like of course the situations that happen in your life are, you know, unique to you, but the emotion that you're experiencing is the exact same as someone else in another circumstance. And if you
Mhm.
can share that with someone else, like I mean, like you said, like it just makes huge wonderful experience in their life that they would have never otherwise found out about,
Yeah.
or at
Yeah.
least it would have took them a long time to figure it out, but now they get to, you know, use your experience and your love as a springboard in their own
Yeah.
life. Yeah, it's great.
hmm
And I could feel it in your voice when you said that too, so that's all, you know, I like that.
Thanks.
So for this next question here, what are some obstacles that you experienced either lately or in the past that you would be comfortable sharing today on the Peace Talk? I know we've talked about a lot of those today.
Oh man, obstacles. Childcare.
Yeah.
Childcare. And I know you feel that one. Like anybody that has children in 2020, they're like, "Oh dear God, I'm so sorry, teachers. I promise to sign into
I was
law
just saying that last
any
night.
budget raises that you want, like how much you want to get paid." Like,
Shout out to all the teachers out there for real. Oh my God.
right,
Can't even
right.
imagine.
No, real though. One of the biggest obstacles that I am actually having lately is my depression has come back.
Okay.
And it's something that I mean, I talk about it, right? I have a podcast. Like my entire business now is showing people this path that they could be on. I hate the word coach. I hate the word coach. So I don't even know how, like, what to say or what encompass what I do. But I tell people all the time, like, here's some things to make you better, and here's some things that will help reset your brain. And I've done all of them. And the one thing that I think is really profound and prevalent right now is mental health.
Yes.
Because even though I'm willing to talk about it, I used to talk about it like, oh yeah, I used to have depression and blah blah blah, blah. Like it ever goes away. It's very much like being an addict. It never actually goes away. It's always there.
Yeah.
It just, if you drink or if you don't, if you use or if you don't, like you're still an addict. And for me, I still have depression. That is still in my body chemistry.
Right.
And I was not going through an episode until September, when all of the fires happened and the entire West Coast was on fire. Because God, I'm so glad that climate change is not real. I digress. Sorry, I just had to slip that in there. Anyway, one of the wettest states in the entire country was completely on fire, but let's go ahead and pretend it doesn't exist. And hurricanes were happening in Alaska, but I mean, okay, all right, I'm moving on. when the fires happened and we had to evacuate, we packed our car as though we would have nothing to come home to, and we were on full-fledged survival mode. And then there's not a brochure or some sort of instruction manual on what to expect when you get a puppy. And so we got a puppy, and it was like, oh my God, it was like having a newborn that I did not plan for 9 months, and, and a toddler that was eating everything at the same time, and with very sharp teeth. So they're not just gnawing on it, they're totally destroying this thing. And we just sort of went into like survival mode. And then it's like one of the worst winters already in Portland. So it's been gray for like 25 days straight. I haven't seen the sunshine in so long. And I suddenly realized a couple of days ago, like, oh my God, I actually need help. Like, no amount of meditating, no amount of clearing my energy, no amount of yoga, no amount of like loud rock concert level dancing in my kitchen is going to help if I can't rebalance the chemistry. And I'm totally okay talking about it, because it's one of those things, like, it's not talked about enough. We talk about depression like it's the last stop on the train, right? Yeah. Like, it's you and if you have suicidal thoughts, that's when you're depressed. Well, no, there's a lot leading up to it. That's like saying when you have graduation, like, you've accomplished something. Well, what about the last 12 years of school? Right. Like, you're telling me that there wasn't a lead up there? Yeah. So yeah, it's been really hard to kind of get back on the horse, to do anything with my podcast. Like, I have no desire to do social media. And when I realized that my desire to even go downstairs and be in my craft room was no longer there, that's when I thought, okay, yeah, I need help, because this isn't me. This isn't who I am. And I don't believe that there should be ever any shame for A, talking to somebody, and B, getting help. Like, I'm all for naturopathic stuff. I'm pro cannabis, like, I'm pro mushrooms and psilocybins and all of those. However, the bonus of pharmaceuticals is you don't have to wait 3 months to rebalance everything. Like, it can help right now. And sometimes your brain will not have 3 months to be able to balance itself out. So I decided to get back onto antidepressants, because with holidays coming in 2020 and everything that we just came through, it's not fair to my family either for me to just continue to suffer, because it's affecting them as well, right? So yeah, so that's my biggest obstacle right now, and that's what I'm doing about it, is I'm actually, again, taking care of myself so that I can be a better human all around.
I like that. And like you said, first off, yeah, you have to find what is going to help you and work for you. And then second, you really have to, there is no shame in talking about this type of stuff. You should talk about this type of stuff. And for anybody out there that's listening to this and, you feel like you're struggling with anything, there's someone out there that wants to hear what you have to say. Don't ever think for a second that there's no one out there that can relate to you or wants to hear what you have to say. It may not be, maybe it's not your parents, or maybe it's not your friends that you feel comfortable talking about this type of stuff with, but there is someone out there. So never be shameful of that. Like, there's help.
Yeah.
But I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
It is something that definitely needs to be talked about more, especially now in this time. For a lot of people, they've been able to do a reset, and it's put them in a better place mentally. But there's also a lot of people that have been cut off from social circles and maybe family, and they are by themselves, and they are in a dark place right now. And again, if you feel like something is wrong, like, definitely don't hesitate to talk about this type of stuff, guys, and find help.
Yeah, no, not at all. I feel like 2020 was the reset for everybody. If you were a workaholic, you've been forced to slow down. You probably lost your job and have been forced to nothingness. If you were so so far in the hole that you felt like you never had time to do anything else because you were always obligated to do other things for other people. 2020 took all of those obligations away. Like, you're not the soccer mom anymore. You're not the dance mom. You're not like running around crazy with the chicken with your head off, chicken with your head cut off. Like going into all the 5 million networking meetings, right? So now you suddenly have time to write your book, or to have a craft room, or to play with your kid, or so whatever was your norm. I've noticed with 2020, that's where the shadows are coming out, right? Like the skeletons in the closet are going, yeah, that's not going to work anymore. Like we gotta fix this. We gotta change this up. But the mental health piece specifically, it's now people who thought mental health was I don't know, something that was fixable or like non-existent or whatever. Oh, baby's awake. It's now everybody's being forced to talk about it, and you don't have to get to the point. See, that's the other side of it, is you don't have to get to the point where you feel like you don't even want to be around anymore to get some help. And that's where, when I realized the things that make me the happiest are no longer making me happy, I don't want to get to the point, and this needs to be said, I feel like I never wanted to get to the point where my son could walk in and find me in a situation that would traumatize him that I couldn't recover from. And so why wouldn't you get help before you get to that point?
Right.
Because when you're depressed and when you have these things going on in your brain and the chemistry is not balanced, that's a very clear-cut path to where that could go. Right. So why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself, to your family, to your loved ones? Like, why would you wait until you're literally falling off the bridge during a train crash to go, yeah, maybe I should get some help.
Exactly.
Right? Don't do that. Yeah, take care of yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's not, like you said, it's not always about, once you start experiencing those suicidal thoughts or whatever the case may be, that now you need to start talking about it. Like there's things that lead up to that. And if you can catch it early, maybe just going and talking to someone about it is all you needed. But if you never take that chance or that opportunity to invest into yourself, into your mental health, that's when it can kind of derail and become something that you do have always feared it becoming.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes just telling the people that care about you the most, like, hey, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. They will immediately switch and support you, because it goes from this taboo subject to, oh my God, you're not okay. All right. How can we make you okay? How can we get you to be okay again?
Right.
Because nobody wants to lose their loved ones.
That's a good point too. Yeah. Like, because without your loved ones first knowing about it, they can't make that mental shift to, help you get back to where you used to be. Otherwise, it just doesn't exist to them. And then when you're in that dark place and they're unaware of what's going on, your mind starts to play tricks on you that, like, oh, they don't care about my mental health, when in reality they don't know what's going on. So the first step is, again, talking about it and not being shameful of that.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So this next question can help with kind of like what we just talked about. And what are some tactics that you have used throughout your life to, kind of get yourself back on track when you've felt yourself kind of slipping?
So, it sounds so cliche and it's so mainstream now, but meditation, forget about, okay, I'm a Capricorn, I'm an INFJ, I'm an Enneagram 5. Like, basically what that means is my brain never shuts off. Okay. All of those things mean I'm always in my head. I'm always thinking. I cannot sit in a corner in quiet and meditate. I can't. I never been able to. Thankfully, now they have all of these apps like Insight Timer. See, the ones that you hear about are Calm and Headspace. Those are expensive. They pay money. They're celebrity apps. Don't get those. No. Go to Insight Timer. It's totally free. You can have guided meditations that will help you from everything, no shit, tantric sex, all the way to better sleeping. Like and everything in between. Or you can set it up so that you just have music in the background. Like for me, it's monks chanting. That's what calms my brain the most.
Yeah,
and you can
absolutely.
put this on for 10, 20 minutes, whatever. Because what happens, and I'm going to tell you the logic side of it, because everybody goes, oh, well, meditation, it's so woo and it doesn't really help. And they talk about all blah, blah, blah. The logic side, what happens is you're able to disengage your brain. When you're able to disengage your brain, your cortisol immediately drops. Your blood pressure immediately drops. Your heart rate slows down. You breathe deeper. And when you fill your lungs with oxygen, you are actually providing oxygen to all of your muscles and all of your organs and to your brain. When you breathe deeply, you are actually nourishing your body so it can function better.
Yeah.
That's what meditation does. Meditation turns your brain off for 20 minutes so that your body can actually recoup, so that it can relax. That's why meditation is so powerful.
Yes.
The longer you can meditate, if you can go for an hour, messages come to you, like awareness comes to you, like that's when all the woo stuff happens, like where you just go, oh my God, I just got this amazing download and I'm going to be a bajillionaire because this is going to change the world, right?
All right.
Go with that, because that's your higher self, like actually saying, hey, this is a good idea and you're really good at this and this really needs to be done. But you never get there if you don't unplug your brain. 100%. And you never get to a sense of peace and being able to go, okay, yes, the power bill is due. Yes, I've missed a car payment because 2020 and I have no job right now. Or yes, I have to go get a food box because again, I've lost my job. And so I can't just go to this grocery store. Like, yes, the circumstances suck right now, but you know what? We are healthy. We don't have this virus. I know we can do whatever we want. Like our resume is awesome when the world writes itself. If we feel like we have to be an employee, I know we'll be able to find a job again.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about my kid being fed because thankfully the school district has decided that they're going to give meals to all of these families. So now I know my kid is taken care of. And like, it doesn't change your reality. It doesn't change what's happening. We're still in 2020. It's still a dumpster fire, right?
Right.
45 is still trying to pretend he's president. And so that doesn't change. What changes is the way you're able to handle it.
Yes,
meditation helps your brain handle it so that you're not overwhelmed. You don't have anxiety. You don't have panic attacks. You don't have nightmares. You're not fighting with your partner over them not unloading the dishwasher because you're at home all the time and all you do is stare at dirty dishes because you just don't give a shit about mundane office and home stuff anymore, right?
True.
So meditation for me has been one of the biggest catalysts, and I took it from a logical perspective. I'm very woo, don't get me wrong, I'm super woo, but the logical side of it is all of the things that happen to your brain chemistry is what can actually be a game changer for you in your life if you actually meditate. Like actually meditate. No less than 20 minutes. Less than 20 minutes if you haven't been meditating all the time doesn't do anything for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you brought up the guided meditation. I mean, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I love that you brought it up again, that the guided meditations or the music, because I feel like that's a big barrier for a lot of people when they hear about meditation. They're like, especially in today's world where we're just go, 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 or we're always on our phone or whatever the case may be. Like people are like, oh, I can't sit for 20 minutes and just sit in silence with my thoughts. Like that's craziness. I can't do that. But when you have the assistance of that music or those guided meditations, it really does make the entry barrier a lot less and a lot more enjoyable because you have something to, kind of tell you where to begin. And then from there, like your higher self takes over. So
yes,
I love that because, for anyone that's been considering getting into meditation or thinking that they can't do it because they don't want to be alone with their thoughts or whatever the case may be, look into having some sort of music in the background with it or a guided meditation to help you. Yeah. Because that's definitely a good way to get into it.
Definitely. Definitely. And for those people who say, oh, well, I don't ever have time. Here's my challenge. Don't delete your accounts, but delete your apps. Delete Instagram, delete Twitter, delete LinkedIn, delete WhatsApp, delete Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, delete all of them.
Oh.
Don't delete your account so you can re-download it and re-sign in if you feel compelled to later, but delete the actual apps. And you will be dumbfounded at how much time you sit and waste by staring at your phone.
So true.
And just scrolling through stuff and thinking, well, I'm only doing this for about 5 minutes. No, you're not. In reality, you're actually doing it for about 45 minutes and you have no idea because it's helping your brain escape in a very unhealthy way.
Yep.
Meditation helps your brain escape in an extremely healthy way.
Yep.
So don't remove your accounts because people freak out. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do without Instagram? No. Just delete the app temporarily.
And that's the thing of, people have no idea how much time they actually do spend on those applications. For example, there's a function on iPhones called screen time, and it tells you, it literally breaks down like how much time you're on stuff. And I was amazed how much time I actually spent on my phone. And that was a wake up call to, put it down a lot more and how much time you actually do have to invest into things.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, when we were talking about the positive benefits of meditation, another nice one that you touched on was how meditation, it detaches you from the self. And what we mean by that is, that can be good, but it can also be bad. So if your self is, okay, I just got this promotion at work, or I just helped these people do this thing and that was me, I feel good about that. That's great. But it can also be bad as far as like you made a mistake. Maybe you messed up at work, or maybe you lashed out on someone, or maybe you like tripped and fell and broke something, like, and now you're like, this terrible person. And when you associate yourself with I am those actions, that can be very, very self-destructive. But meditation helps you detach from that you are not your work, or you are not your actions. You are not even your emotions. You are your own being. And when you can have that separation through the assistance of meditation, that is another thing that's a big game changer.
I really love that you pointed that out, because in my family, we stopped saying I am, unless we're talking about something that we really are. Like, I am an awesome wife. I am an amazing mother. I am a very loving person.
Right.
I am very driven. I'm not angry. I feel angry. So when you shift that and you're able to go, no, I do this for a living, not I am a graphic designer.
Exactly.
I do graphic design, right? I do a podcast. I run a podcast, because a podcast is not you. And I am not anger. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel disappointed. When you can compartmentalize those, it's amazing how much faster you can let those go. And then you double down and you go in and you meditate. And sometimes my meditation is not me sitting down. That's the other thing that a lot of people think is, oh, meditation is where you sit and you're still and you're just calm. Some of my meditation is turning up Pink, because angry girl music, and Pink is a rock star and she's like the rock star. So I will turn it up to concert level and I will sing my heart out and dance in my kitchen until I am dripping sweat.
All right.
That is meditation. That is also meditation, because I am moving whatever energy or whatever is stuck inside of me, just in a different way. One is still, one is action. You need both. Exercise is not meant to give you a nice ass and like a flat stomach. Exercise is meant to move your body and make sure your joints and your ligaments and your muscles are working correctly, and to allow that energy that literally science has proven, we all have an energy field, that it doesn't get stuck, that you're not clogging the pipes. Like when people sit and don't do anything and don't move, it's like never ever clearing out the drain in your bathtub. And then you wonder why you can't shower without taking a bath. Like it's the same thing. So meditation isn't just sitting down. Meditation is figuring out a way to detach your brain so that you can move through whatever you need to move through.
I love that. 100%. Well said.
Thanks.
So for this last question here, and then I need to take the little guy to
Yes.
his grandparents. Hold on, my notes closed. Yes, for this last question here,
You
what
thought you were only going to get one episode and you got 2.5 from.
I love it. Honestly, I wish I had more time because we could go even deeper. So that just means we'll have to have you on again for another episode.
Absolutely. And I want
Yeah.
you to come on to how to be a badass ish.
Yes, I would be honored.
The ish, I have to talk about this really quick before you tell your last question, your third question, 27th question, whatever. Is the reason it's how to be a badass ish is because people are so focused on how to be awesome, how to be a badass, like how to be amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but what if my vision of a badass is completely different from other people's vision of it? Like, I think of a badass woman, I think of Laura Croft.
Yeah.
I have no desire to go fight zombies and kick some robber's ass and like carry guns and like that's not me. But I do know it's pretty badass to actually stand in who I am and accept who I am for all my faults and all my awesomeness and everything else. Like that to me is badass. Like that's where
100%.
that came from. So you're gonna have to come on onto
I'd
that
love
one.
to. I would absolutely love to show our versions of being a badass.
Yes.
I like that. Okay, so for the last one,
Yes.
what is advice that you could give out to someone out there right now that's struggling with something that to them seems impossible to overcome? And I know we've talked about a lot of great nuggets today, but
it's the simplest thing, and it's the one that was a lifeline for me. This too shall pass. It's so simple and it's so easy to remember. And it's when I was going through some of the darkest points in my life, all I could think is, I don't know when this is going to end, but I know this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
I know it's going to change. And it's the same with good things, right? Like
Right.
we're so afraid of losing the good things, and we're so afraid and we live in fear of the bad things that we forget to actually see that no, you need both of them. You need both sides of it, right?
Yes.
This too shall pass. It doesn't matter how dark shit is. It doesn't matter how low you are or everything is going wrong. If everything in your life is going wrong, absolutely nothing is going right, then you need to step back and you need to pay attention, because the universe does not destroy your life if you are on the right path. Ever. The universe will put things into your path that are meant specifically for you. So if that relationship is they're cheating on you, okay, they're definitely not meant for you. Don't try again. This was not an accident. They didn't like accidentally fall into the person totally naked, right? Like they didn't trip on the rug and like their clothes ripped off because a speaker was going. Like, so if you lose a job, were you actually happy at that job? Like if you lose your house, okay, where are you supposed to go? Like what is the universe trying to do for you? Because humans do not do subtlety well. The
Right.
universe will usually tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, this isn't a good idea. And you feel that. You feel that in your body, like, oh God, I really don't like my job. I really want to leave. Or I don't know if I really want this guy as my boyfriend. And I don't know, we're just not really doing awesome, right? And then the universe will kind of smack you upside the head, because now that relationship is starting to fall apart and you're fighting all the time, and like you don't even want to spend time with that person anymore, and that job makes you miserable and you're always in trouble, and Brenda in accounting is always down your throat for whatever, right? Like, so then when you don't listen and you just go, oh, well, it's just kind of a crappy day, more than 5 or 6 crappy days in a row is not a crappy day. It's a
Right.
pattern. It's a sign. It's literally right before the roundhouse kick to the face, when the universe says, all right, fine, we're going to fire you. And then you're going to lose your house. And then you're going to lose your job. And then this person's going to cheat on you. And this is because you weren't paying attention to the little signs we gave you. So
Right.
we're going to destroy it so that you can stop doing what you're doing and actually turn around so that we can give you the damn cupcake. Like, here you go. So for me, when somebody is like really, really, really low, remember this too shall pass. And then write a list. Write a list of all the things that you want not what you don't want. Don't ever put what you don't want, because the universe will see that and go, okay, cool. You want to be very specific and write down in great detail the things that you want. And I'm going to tell you something that somebody said to me one time. Well, yeah, but I mean, if I have more than like 5 or 6 things on that list, like that just seems like I'm asking for a lot. Okay. What makes you think that you can be more imaginative than the creator herself? You really think that with your limited perspective, your limited experiences, your very short lifespan, that you have more imagination and bigger ideas than the universe? Like, don't
Right.
do that to yourself.
100,
Don't do that to yourself.
100,000%. And
So
that's
when
that. Yes.
when you are writing this list, be unbelievably detailed.
Yes.
Like, to the point where other people would look at it and go, that's not reality. And all you have to say is, no, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it.
I
It's
love
coming.
that.
Know what you want. Be very specific. It will come to you. And this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. I love that. And that's a wonderful way to end it. And I love that you said that some people say when they write down things in detail as far as what they want, they'll be like, oh, I'm asking for too much. But you have to really realize that, again, like how you mentioned, you're talking about the universe here. Like, the universe gives and takes with ease every single day. It's been doing this since the beginning of time, and it will do it to the end.
Yeah.
This is what the universe does for a living, like it's not, people think that like something divine has to happen for them to get this life that they've always wanted to get, but like this is the universe loves to do this for you. It just comes to you with ease. You're not asking for too much. It's what was meant for you, and if that's what you want, then go out there and get it.
And don't listen to other people that you would not trade places with.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't tomorrow wake up Freaky Friday and be super excited that you are living their life, don't take their advice. Ever. Ever. I don't care if it's your partner. I don't care if it's your parent. I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care if it's your mentor. If you would not trade places with that person, never take advice from them about anything that you wouldn't trade places with them on. Don't talk to your mom if she's never run a business for you starting a business, especially something that she's been conditioned is a failing business, like an Etsy store or being an artist. Artists are not always starving. We've believed that in order to be an artist, you have to be only an artist. No, you can paint after you work for Intel. Come home and paint. Like, you can do both. You can do both. And you can have a business as one. Don't ever take advice from people that you would not trade places with for that specific situation.
I love that.
Don't take advice from your best friend who's been divorced 3 times on your marriage. Don't do it.
Yes.
Right?
Far too many people take advice from people that have never done what they want to do.
Yes, because they believe that they have the best interest, but the problem is those people only want you to be safe, and what you're doing doesn't feel safe to them.
Exactly. And a lot of times,
feels good to you, then do it.
Yes. And a lot of times, like, you have to make these moves in silence. Because for the people that don't think that it's safe, that don't think it's possible, when you tell them about these goals, like, whether you think it or you're aware of it or not, like, they're going to be sending out negative energy towards whatever goal that you're wanting to do. So a lot of times, like, do things in silence. Do what's best for you, not the whole world doesn't need to know. Your Facebook feed doesn't need to know.
No.
Just keep doing you. And remember that the universe gives out abundance every day with ease. You're not asking for too much.
No. No, the universe has your back. Like, it really does. The universe really does have your back. Even in the worst possible situations, this too shall pass. And what awesomeness is going to come on the next step.
Yes, I love that. And we're going to end it right there today. And that is how you become your version of a badass. I love that. Well, Amanda, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so very much. You want to say hi?
Yes. Oh, hello. Oh my gosh, you're so cute. Hi. Oh my gosh.
Hello.
Thank you so very much for having me. It was really, really awesome talking to you. And I just really appreciate you inviting me on here and showing me your adorable, handsome little man.
Yes. This is Apollo. I think this is his first time on the show. So nice.
Well, hello.
Little
I'm
cute
gonna.
man. Yeah. Yep, that's that out there. Okay, well, thank you again, and I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on the show. This was great, and I would love to come on your show as well. That would be an honor of mine. And as usual, guys, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Peace.